What's going on, everybody? Matt Raymer here of Cruising with Matt, and I've got something really exciting today that I can't wait to share with you. I'm planning to sit down with my friend Dario Cremona and talk to him a little bit about his experience cruising in the times of COVID-19. Now, Dario's been on 3 cruises since the COVID-19 pandemic has started, and with cruises set to resume around December 1st here in the United States, I thought it would be interesting to sit down with somebody who's been on a cruise post-pandemic and see what the experience is like. How's it different from the cruises that you and I know? And, what you can expect when cruising does make a return to the United States. Now, you probably know Dario if you're interested in cruising because he's got one of the best cruising accounts on Instagram at CruiseExperience. He's also got a great blog. His website is fantastic at cruise-experience.com. So please, if you have time, check it out. He's also got a great podcast, the Cruise Show podcast. He's full of great information and just he's a lot of fun to talk to about cruising. He knows his stuff and he's got a lot of experience in the field. So this should be a fun conversation. What do you say? Let's jump in and talk with Dario Cremona. So I want to welcome in my good friend Dario Cremona, straight from Switzerland. Dario is behind the CruiseExperience account on Instagram, one of my favorite people to follow. Always great photos, great videos. And if you're interested, check out some of his blog posts. I know he's got a recent blog post from one of his recent cruises on board Costa. And that's part of the reason why I have him here today. I'm really excited to talk to him about what the resumption of cruising has been like and see, what his experience was like over the last couple of weeks as he's jumped back on a couple of ships and kind of had a little bit of a taste of what it's going to be like in the post-COVID-19 era. So Dario, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. And, everything back. I love your content as well. You're doing a great job. And,
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Love your YouTube videos. They're really great.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. So first off, just a basic question. How were your trips, man? How did it feel to be back on board?
I mean, it has been a great experience. I've been on 2 cruises. On the first sailing in July, then I went on a river cruise. I did Costa and MSC, and all of these cruises have been pretty amazing. And one thing I want to point out is like the reduced capacity. I mean, like on MSC cruises, for example, we were only 1,500 passengers instead of 6,000, and this has been like the best experience. You got so much space on these ships right now. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I wanted to ask you about. How does that change the embarkation process? Obviously, with all the testing protocols, I figured that it might be a little bit slower getting on board. There might be delays, things like that. But with that amount of people, I guess it probably wouldn't be too different. What was it like showing up at the port, and what was your experience getting on the ship?
Yeah, so first, I had to prepare all the stuff here in Switzerland because Switzerland is a high-risk country in Europe. So I had to do one test in Switzerland, 72 hours before embarkation. And I did these tests, and they're just tests, so nothing really special about it. Then I received the confirmation that my corona test is negative, and then I was good to go. But on the first sailing with Mein Schiff 2, we didn't need any testing before. We were good to go without testing. And then it suddenly changed when CLIA announced that they will do 100% testing on passengers and crew. So, of course, embarkation was much slower than I was used to. It took 2 hours for me to get on that ship because, you have to imagine when you get to the terminal, they will first check your passport and negative corona test. Then you need to do a temperature control. And then another crew member will check your corona test again. And then you need to do another swab test in the terminal. Once you did that, it's like about, let's say, 1 to 2 minutes. You have to wait until like the result is here. And when I went on Costa, it took me 2 hours, and at MSC only 1.5 hours. But it's slower, and because of the swab tests, it takes more time to get on that ship.
For sure, and with all the protocols in place, obviously there's the testing. I'm sure they're trying to keep passengers as distant as possible. When you're in the terminal and showing up around that many people, did you feel safe?
I felt safe because you need to wear masks, mandatory. So mandatory mask wearing all the time, also on the ship when moving around. And because I received all the time a slot, like at MSC, I received a slot at 3 p.m. There weren't too many people in the terminal. You still had like much space and to keep distance. And I felt all the time safe, even on board. I wasn't feeling like, oh my God, way too much people, no distance, whatever.
Well, that's good. That means they're doing what they're saying they're going to do. Another question I have, obviously anybody who cruises knows that feeling the first time you step on board, how great it is to feel like you're back on a ship, you're starting your vacation again. Did you notice anything immediately that felt different or that was less or more exciting, when you first got onto the ship after taking part in all that testing?
To be honest, the first thing has been pretty exciting. I mean, like, it was the first cruise after the whole lockdown. It was the first cruise ever with Mein Schiff too. I felt pretty excited about that. And, I still have this like, cruise feeling, getting back to the ship, this excitement. And, when I did the Costa and MSC cruise, to be honest, I didn't feel that excitement anymore because you need to do so much to get on that ship, like testing in Switzerland, testing at the terminal. You have to fill in a health questionnaire. You need to wear masks all the time, sanitizing all the time. To be honest, I didn't felt like excited as before this whole COVID-19 pandemic hit us. But still, when I stepped on board, there was like this special cruise excitement. And especially on Grandiosa, I don't know if you were on Meraviglia or any ship like that in US. It's like crazy. You get in, you see like this dome, like little Las Vegas, and it feels really good to be back. But still, you feel like, okay, it's not the type of vacation we enjoyed before this whole pandemic.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think is going to be interesting. When cruising does resume here in the U.S., it's not going to be the same, and quite frankly, it might never be the same. Obviously, the cruise lines are going to do their best to get things back to the way that passengers and guests expect them to be. But safety is going to be the top priority. So there's a good chance, even when things do come back, it might never be the same as we remember.
No, it won't, and then especially. We are going, it's a long way to go until we achieve like the same figures we achieved last year in the cruising industry. I mean, imagine it's now October and only like 20 cruise ships worldwide are operating, and the rest is still in a cold layup. And I think like it's a long way to go until we see like the worldwide fleet sailing again.
Absolutely. And as disappointing as it is, a lot of those decisions are for the best and for the safety of everybody involved. Mm-hmm. So my next question is, when it came to the food on board, here in the U.S., we're hearing a lot of different approaches to how people want to resume. Some have said we're not going to bring the buffet back at all until we have a better chance to figure out what's going to happen. That was Norwegian's approach. Carnival, Royal Caribbean have said that they're going to staff the buffets with staff instead of it being self-service. When you were at the buffet or when you were in the main dining room, what was the dining experience like? How much different was it?
So food quality was still like the best on cruise ships. So I really enjoyed eating on these cruise ships. But I think like, because many of your followers are American, I'm going to tell about my experience on Costa because they're part of Carnival Corporation. So there, they have no self-service buffets anymore. You can't even go to different stations and they will serve you the food. You really need to take place, sit down at the table, and then you order by QR code. So you always have your smartphone with you, and you always scan like the QR codes of the bar menu, of like the bar list and then menu card, and then you choose from like a virtual menu card, and yeah, they're also like serving food in the buffet. So you, as I said, you can't really go to different stations, and they will like just serve you food and then you're good to go. You really have to sit down at the table. I think like the same concept we'll see, at Carnival, Hold America Line, Princess, all the other brands of the Carnival Corporation. And at MSC it was a little bit different. You still have the possibility to go to different stations, but they put in some like some walls between you and the crew member, and they only serve you the food, and you always receive like a new plate. So at the end, after you went through the buffet, you've got like 10 plates of food. And I don't know if it's like the best concept, but it's still like it's kind of touchless. I mean, you go to different stations, they serve you food, and you don't have to touch like and I think like it's a good concept, but still, I mean, it takes so much more time to get into a buffet, because before you get in, you need to wash hands, you need to sanitize hands, they check your temperature, and then you can go into the buffet restaurant.
Well, that's probably a good thing. I mean, obviously, it slows things down a little bit, but I feel more comfortable with knowing that everybody's going to have clean hands and be doing what they're supposed to do. Now, you mentioned using your phone a lot. I know that some of the cruise lines are planning on having fully interactive menus for dinner. What was that experience like? Did the app work well? Did you think it was a smart way of figuring out how to make things happen?
Yeah, it worked out pretty well, especially at MSC, because they have got their own app called MSC for Me. So you can really book like excursions or the other show through the app. So you don't really need to go to any reception or guest service desk. That's pretty awesome. When I went on Costa on the 27th of September, it was the first sailing for international guests. Everything worked, but they hadn't prepared, for example, German menu cards. So you only were able to, check them in English or Italian. But I think that's a process they're going through. So I think with time, they will have set up these German menu cards as well. But it worked out, it pretty worked. And that's good. I mean, like, also the apps they're setting up, they're working, and that's good. And I really like to have like my own app, and I can like reserve the other shows. I can make reservations at specialty dining restaurants directly from my smartphone. And I think that's pretty awesome, especially for us youngsters.
Definitely. I mean, it makes things a lot more convenient and can save you a lot of time. So that seems like a good idea. Now, you mentioned the shows. What was the difference there? Obviously, most of the cruise lines are saying they're going to strictly limit capacity in the theater for shows and things of that nature. Did the show productions feel like a normal cruise, or was it a little bit different?
At Costa, no. They reduced the capacity to 50%, so only 350 passengers were able to go into the restaurant, to the theater. And Costa isn't doing like the big shows they used to. There is only like one singer, for example, doing some performances, and that's it. At MSC, the experience was much better as well. There they reduced 50% of the capacity, but the shows were more like these big cruise shows, theater shows with, I mean, you probably checked my Instagram stories. And you've seen on Grandiosa, they really have these big shows with many crew members, and I really like that. At Costa, it's different because they only invite like one singer, and that's it. And as well at Costa, for example, you had to show your cruise card. They were like doing some registration for contact tracing. So that's like a good sign. They're really like, you know, scanning your cruise card. So if there is a passenger, you know, that gets tested positive on board, they really can like contact trace and really find out which passengers were in contact with this guest.
Yeah, that's smart. That's really important because that's one of the best ways. I know we discussed just a couple of minutes before we started recording that you found out after you got back that there was potentially somebody on your sailing who did have COVID-19 or at least displayed symptoms of it.
Yeah.
So being able to know who you're around and where the danger lies, that's very important. So it seems like Costa is doing a good job of that.
Yeah, they're really focusing on contact tracing as well, MSC, because like literally everyone has got the app on their smartphone, so they can really like see, okay, these passengers were there, the others there, when like someone gets tested positive on COVID-19.
Now, one of the other things I really enjoy when I go on a cruise, entertainment-wise, is karaoke or dancing in the nightclubs, all the things that, you know, you interact with other guests in close proximity. Did you notice any of those things still happening? And if so, how were they different?
At Costa, no, nothing of these activities were planned on our cruise. They had some, let's say, trivias at the pool deck, but you know they had to be seated, so there were like some chairs there, and you really needed to sit down and enjoy the show, whatever, the trivia, dancing lesson, whatever. And at MSC was different. They said, okay, we can offer some like dancing lessons, whatever, or karaoke, but you need to keep distance, you know. So they always, you know, as well on the pool deck when they had like dancing lessons, they always had these stickers on the floor to show where you need to stand and to keep like the distance, you know. But Costa is more strict. Like, I don't know why, but I think like, you know, it's Carnival. You know, it's not only MSC is private. Like, there's just like the brand MSC, and you know, with the restart of Costa, it's not only Costa is restarting again. It's like the Carnival Corporation is restarting again, and that's why I think they're like more, you know, focusing that, you know, everything, you know, works out well and no passenger gets tested positive, you know.
Sure. Now, you mentioned before booking excursions within the app. Now, one thing that I think is interesting, for most of the cruise lines, you can only book excursions directly through them with approved vendors. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you were in a place where you wanted to just get off the ship and roam on your own, you're not allowed to do that?
Yeah. And we had a couple on our MSC cruise in Palermo. You know, you only can book through the cruise line. So I booked it was like a bike tour in Palermo, but another couple from another excursion, they went to like buy some souvenirs, and they like escaped the bubble. And then the cruise line, MSC Cruises, said, "You guys, you can't embark anymore. We have to, you know, leave you in Palermo." So that's the thing. If you want to go ashore, if you want to do excursions, you only can do it with the cruise line you're, you know, cruising with, and you can't really like go wherever you feel like to go. I mean, like, you can't go like into a shop, and if so, you have to ask the tour guide if it's possible or not.
Interesting. And with that being the case, how did you feel the selection of available excursions was? Obviously, as more time goes on, I'm sure the cruise line will feel more comfortable branching out and finding other vendors that they feel like are being safe and following the protocols. But you know, with you being on, you know, one of the first few cruises coming back, did you feel like there were good options for you?
Yeah, they were. I mean, in Naples, for example, I took an excursion to the island of Capri. It was pretty awesome. I mean, like one of the most beautiful islands I saw in the whole Mediterranean. And in Palermo, I did the bike tour. In the other ports, like Civitavecchia and Malta. In Malta, I wasn't able to disembark because Malta is as well a high-risk country. And in Civitavecchia, to be honest, Rome, I've been like 5 times there, so I stayed on the ship. But to be honest, there was a wide selection in times of Corona. So in Naples, you were able to go on, not you were actually able to go on 5 excursions in one time, but you had the possibility to choose from 5 excursions as well in Palermo. And Malta, I guess, like 6 or 7 excursions. And in Civitavecchia, obviously more, because some of them did some bike tours in Rome or just did like some sightseeing tours in Rome. Others went to other places in Civitavecchia itself. So in Civitavecchia, you had the possibility to choose from, let's say, 10 excursions. But if you compare that to like times before Corona, it's like nothing. I mean, like,
Yeah.
nothing. Naples, like 5 excursions. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's so many things that you used to be able to do, so many places you could take a ferry to. I know when we went to Naples, we went to the island of Sorrento. A lot of people on our ship went to Capri like you did. But yeah, it's going to be, I mean, at least for a while, that, like you said, that's just the way it's going to be as these cruise lines try to adapt.
Yeah. And they're working only with not travel agents, but companies that got like certificates, like to operate in the different places. And, that's also why actually, and at the moment, like, the excursions are limited because they only can choose from like, selected tour operators.
Yeah. Now, the worst day of any cruise is disembarkation day, no matter what. Even under the best circumstances, knowing your vacation's over, having to get off the ship is always a bad day. When you were getting off the ship or when you're getting ready to get off the ship, what was that process like? Did you have to take a test to get back on land, or did you have to go through any additional steps customs-wise?
No, personally, I hadn't to do another test or something similar. But the ones who did an excursion in Malta, for example, in La Valletta, they had to do another swab test during sea day to get off the ship in Italy, because like the authorities, they want that the people from high risk countries, get tested so they can then go back to their home countries. I had to do a test because I didn't leave in Malta. And it was really quick. I mean, like once we were in Geneva, the disembarkation process was really quick. So still, luggage is waiting outside the terminal. So you don't have to like take it on your own off the ship. And then you, as always, I went to the theater, waited until I can get off. And once I got off, I went back home. It's like a really quick process. Let's say from the time you need to get off, it takes you like 10 minutes.
Wow, that's impressive. That's very impressive.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this was really interesting, man. I was really interested in hearing about what your experience was like. And, while it was different and, some things obviously had to change, it sounds like you're still able to have a really good time. I think that's encouraging, for people here in the U.S. or any of the other countries that are, waiting for cruising to return. If you have a chance, please follow Dario on Instagram. His account is one of my favorites. Great photos, great pictures. He's always got great information about his recent trips and what he's planning for the future. Make sure you check out the Cruise Show podcast. It's fantastic. A lot of great experiences there as well. So Dario, man, thank you for taking the time. It was really great to hear about your experience.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.